Outriders World Slayer has launched and has added a ton of new systems and content to the game, but what are these ascension points and PAX trees? It's not the gaming convention, I can tell you that, or even the new endgame. Let's break it all down and get through some tips and tricks for the new expansion. Let's go. Let me know in the comments below any tips or anything about the new expansion that I've missed so we can all help each other out. And the World Slayer expansion adds a new campaign to the game, which is about 3 to 4 hours long, depending on if you're soloing it on stream and dying all the time, or if you're playing co-op. It does appear that a lot of this new content is meant to be done co-op, so if you've got a buddy, you will absolutely have a much better time than I did. But the main change here is the 2 progression systems, the Ascension levels and the PAX trees. Now, the Ascension levels is essentially a new way of leveling up past the level 30 level cap. Think of it like Paragon levels from Diablo. The max Ascension level is 200, and you can spend these Ascension points on any of the 4 categories. Each of the major categories has like a rough theme, so depending on your playstyle, you'll probably focus on 1 or 2 of these. Anomaly is the first Ascension category, and this focuses on all of your anomaly stats, like your anomaly powers and skill increases, status power, anomaly damage. Endurance is all of your tanky stats, your health, your armor, healing received, resistances, that kind of thing. Brutality is your weapon power and weapon damage, whether that be close range or long range or just straight weapon damage or even weapon leech. And prowess is basically all of the other stats we haven't discussed. Cooldown reduction, crit chance, crit damage, damage against elites, and magazine size. So really, you'll probably pick 1 or 2 of these to specialize in, and as you level up one of these specific stats, the amount of percentage increase that you get for each point does increase. You can only put 10 points into one specific stat increase, and it'll max out at like about 10%. Say for weapon damage, it's like 10%. So that will change depending on the different stat and how you do level it up, but essentially you'll want to find which ones work for you. Increasing your Ascension level in Outriders can be done in the same way you would level up your general character. That comes from doing quests, defeating enemies, and just all of the repeatable content in the game, whether that's the original endgame like the expeditions or the new Trial of Tara Garata, which we'll get into a little bit later in this video. Obviously, timestamps are down below. PAX trees are the other progression system. Now, this adds 2 new skill trees to the existing 4 classes. So there's no new classes, it's just these new skill trees. Unlike your original skills, these come with their own separate like skill line and nodes to unlock from the PAX class trees. And you will unlock these by actually doing the World Slayer content, progressing through that new expansion. There are 5 points in total, and they give pretty significant bonuses compared to the standard skill trees, and they will affect your build in different ways. There's a lot of really interesting things here, and I think there's going to add to a lot of build flexibility with these different PAX trees. But as you level through the World Slayer expansion and complete that content, you'll get the PAX points, and then you'll be able to succeed in that way and increase your power. Now, when you're clearing content, you may remember in the base game, there were these like world tiers or challenge tiers. Now there are apocalypse tiers, and this is essentially the same thing, except it goes up to 40 now, or like 40 tiers. And as you work your way through these different tiers, it will increase the difficulty as well as the maximum gear level that'll drop for you, and as well as other modifiers and increase the enemy's health and damage and increase some of your stats as well. The ultimate goal here for these apocalypse tiers is to increase the chance of apocalypse gear dropping and increasing the overall gear level that'll drop for you. Apocalypse gear is new gear that's been added with the World Slayers expansion, and this is essentially the same gear as before, except it has an additional mod slot on it. They have also added new legendaries for each of the classes, but I found previous legendaries and other pieces that I'd had before with this extra apocalypse like mod slot on it. Now, essentially, this is going to massively increase your overall power, because Outriders has always been based on the mods that you have and the amount of damage that they do, and having just that extra mod slot just makes such a difference. The downside here though is that even if your piece of gear has that extra apocalypse slot on it, you still can only change 1 mod slot on that piece of gear. So you're going to want to roll these apocalypse gears and, you know, complete a lot of the end game content to get those pieces of gear that have like 2 really good mods on it, and then 1 that's not so good that you can then switch out. And then there's obviously the secondary stats on those gears as well, which does make a bit of a difference in the long run down the line. Now, these drop weights for these pieces are directly affected by your apocalypse tier level, and once you reach the end game, you'll be able to clear certain arenas, and they have a higher chance of dropping the apocalypse pieces as well from those, from like specific sets. Say there are trials that will increase your chances of like boots dropping specifically. This does also add another new currency to the game. You know, there's already enough currencies in Outriders, but this is the anomaly extract, which is the only way to upgrade these apocalypse pieces. So if you get apocalypse pieces that you really like, but they're like a lower like level or gear level, you'll be able to increase them with some resources, plus using these anomaly extracts to increase them as well. So any apocalypse gear that you do find, you do want to dismantle dismantle it so you can get those extract pieces, as well as some extra mods, because there's actually heaps of mods that I didn't realize I have unlocked yet. So it's good to make sure that you're picking up these pieces and actually dismantling them to get the mods, as well as getting the extracts, so you can then level up the pieces that you do like and start really playing with your build. And when you start playing with your build, it really comes down to this new endgame content. The Trial of Tara Garata is the new endgame activity in Outriders Worldslayer. You can essentially think of this as kind of like a gauntlet mode, right? So once you start it, there's no turning back and you have to go all the way to the end or just basically abandon it. So you follow this path and you have 3 attempts, which means you can die 3 times before you have to completely reset and start again. And you do have some flexibility over where you can actually go. So if you bring up the map, you can see there are some like convergences on the main path. You do have to always go on the main path, but you can choose some of these troves or other content which will allow you to get more gear for one, which is the main goal of doing all of this endgame content, but also you can get specific pieces from doing some of these side activities or side arenas. So say for example, this trove here will give you boots if you do manage to clear it. So you can kind of target specific pieces. Say you really need like some boots or a chest piece, whatever it may be, you can target that specific arena and just keep grinding that. Because say if you clear that arena and you didn't get the piece you want, you could just abandon the whole endgame, journey that you're on, or the gauntlet that you're on right now, and then just go and run that one again. And you can just keep doing that. You don't actually have to always go to the end. You can just abandon, because you'll keep the gear that you've already got. You just obviously can't go any further from that point. Now, this all really ties into the Apocalypse tiers. So depending on the Apocalypse tier that you start at the start of the gauntlet, you'll have to stick with that Apocalypse tier all the way through. And that seems okay, especially in the beginning, when in some of the earlier arenas, it's not too hard and you can clear a lot of them solo, or, manage to just scrape by. But the further you get down that line, the harder it's going to get, especially when you get to the bosses. And for some strange reason, I don't know why, but the last one is actually like recommended to be group content. And even as a group, it is extremely hard. So just be mindful when you're playing around with the Apocalypse tiers and see like how high you can keep your Apocalypse tier so you can get that gear drop while being able to clear the content. You want to strike that balance. I wouldn't be trying to really push the tiers if I was a solo player, which, I personally am a solo player, because it is very hard to do. You really want to spend that time gearing up or just grouping up with randoms so you can then try and clear that content. But it's a real challenge as a solo player, and I played practically this entire expansion solo on stream, and man, it was a tough time. I had to constantly keep lowering the tier level for a lot of the bosses, and it was a struggle. Let me tell you, it was a struggle. But if you're watching this video and kind of wondering if you should pick up this expansion, I really would say it comes down to like 2 things. Do you have friends to play with? Because man, it is hard solo. And did you enjoy the original Outriders experience? Because this is basically just this exact same game. It's just additional content. There's nothing really new here, just this additional like mod slots and upgrades that you can kind of do. So if you enjoyed that end game loop, that gear grind from the original Outriders, then you will enjoy this expansion. But if not, then I would look elsewhere. If you're looking for some general like Outriders tips, I'll link my old Outriders tips and tricks video from launch here as well, if you want to go back there and scrub up on your Outriders knowledge. Thank you for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.